Right now, in March 2026, Boosie Badass is tearing apart the entire street code that hip-hop has worshipped for decades. And from Kodak Black to Young Thug to Meek Mill to Hot Boy Turk, nobody in the rap game can agree on what being real even means anymore. And with Boosie calling out Kodak for allegedly going to PC in prison, it's really exposing the hypocrisy that's been eating hip-hop alive from the inside. This isn't just beef. This is the death of street credibility as we know it. And now, before we go any further, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, because Boosie's supporters and things are going to war in these comments, and this conversation needs to be seen by every single person who claims to care about hip-hop culture. Because what we're witnessing right here isn't just two rappers arguing, it's the complete unraveling of the codes, guidelines, and unwritten laws that have dictated who gets respected and who gets blacklisted in this culture. And when you have legends like Turk defending protective custody, when you have Young Thug saying going to PC is actually smarter, when you have Meek Mill embarrassed to even talk about his jail time, you realize something fundamental has shifted. The streets don't make sense anymore, and hip-hop is finally being forced to confront that reality. So let's start from the beginning. Because this beef between Boosie and Kodak didn't just pop up out of nowhere. This has been brewing since 2023, and it all goes back to one moment that changed everything. Kodak Black decided to do a song with 6ix9ine. The track was called Skaka Laka, and for anyone who knows hip-hop culture, you already know why that was a problem. 6ix9ine is a confirmed federal informant. He cooperated with the government. He testified against the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods. He snitched to reduce his sentence. And in the streets, there's supposed to be nothing worse than that. So, when Kodak, a rapper who constantly raps about street life, violence, and keeping it real, decided to collaborate with someone the culture labels a rat, Boosie lost it. He's been going at Kodak ever since. But here's where things get interesting. Because Boosie and Kodak actually worked together before all of this. They did a song called Rocket Man Remix in April 2023. It was a tribute to Takeoff. Jeezy was on it too, and that song went crazy. Kodak had one of the best verses. Boosie ate. Jeezy brought that classic energy. It was a moment of unity in hip-hop. But then, months later, Kodak does the 6ix9ine song, and Boosie felt disrespected. He felt like Kodak violated the culture. He felt like someone who claims to be from the streets shouldn't be making music with a known informant. And from that point on, it's been back and forth. Subliminal shots. Direct disses. Social media rants. And now, in March 2026, this thing has exploded all over again. Because Boosie isn't just mad about the 6ix9ine collaboration anymore. He's bringing up something way more serious. Boosie is claiming that Kodak Black went to PC while he was locked up in federal prison. PC stands for protective custody. It's a separate unit in prison where inmates are housed away from the general population. And in street culture, going to PC is seen as weak. It's seen as not being able to handle yourself. It's seen as asking for protection because you can't survive in the yard with everybody else. And for someone like Kodak, who raps about being tough, being a gangster, being from the trenches, if he really did go to PC, that's a massive contradiction. At least, that's how Boosie sees it. Boosie went on social media and said that Kodak has no credibility anymore. He said nothing Kodak raps about is valid. He said nobody in the streets respects him because of this. And Boosie didn't stop there. He posted a list of rappers who allegedly did not go to PC when they were locked up. The list included Young Thug, Lil Durk, Gucci Mane, T.I., and more. Boosie was basically saying these guys held it down in prison. They were in general population. They programmed with everybody else. They didn't ask for special treatment, and that's why, according to Boosie, they still have their street credibility intact. But Kodak? Nah. Boosie says Kodak checked into PC, and that makes everything he says invalid. Now, Kodak fired back. He went on Instagram and basically told Boosie he's old, irrelevant, and bitter. He called Boosie a crackhead. He said Boosie is just mad because Kodak is younger, richer, and more successful. And Kodak also pointed out that Boosie has his own issues. Legal problems, financial struggles, public controversies. So who is Boosie to be judging anyone? That's Kodak's argument. And honestly, Both of them have valid points from their perspectives. But here's where this story takes a turn that nobody expected, because other rappers started weighing in. And what they said completely flipped the conversation. And now, where things really do get big is when hot boy Turk stepped into the conversation. Turk is a legend. He's from New Orleans. He was part of the Hot Boys with Lil Wayne, Juvenile, and BG. He's been to prison. He's lived that life. And when he heard what Boosie was saying about Kodak, he had to speak up. Turk went live and defended Kodak Black. He said that going to PC doesn't automatically make you a coward. He explained that when you're a high-profile celebrity in prison, you become a target. People want to make a name off you. People want to harm you. And sometimes, the prison administration forces you to go to PC for your own safety. It's not always a choice. Turk said, Kodak didn't go to jail as a regular person. He's a superstar. You have to protect the investment. And that's a powerful statement. Because Turk is basically saying that the rules are different when you're famous. In the free world, Kodak can have bodyguards. He can have armed security. He can have 40, 50 people around him to make sure nothing happens. And nobody calls that weak. Nobody says, oh, you need protection, so you're not tough. No, that's just smart business. So why? Turk asks, is it different in prison? Why can Kodak protect himself on the outside, but if he does it on the inside, suddenly he's a coward? Turk said that doesn't make sense. And he also brought up Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez is in prison right now, and because of his celebrity status, he's being housed separately. Is Tory Lanez a coward, or is the system protecting a high-value inmate? Turk says it's the latter, and he thinks the same logic applies to Kodak. But Boosie wasn't trying to hear any of that. Boosie fired back at Turk and said he lost all respect for him. He said Turk is moving the goalposts. He said Turk is defending Kodak because they're cool, not because it's the truth. And Boosie doubled down on his original point. He said, if you're going to rap about being in the streets, about being tough, about handling business, then you need to back that up when you go to prison. You can't talk all that gangster talk in your music and then ask for protection when you're behind bars. That's Boosie's stance. And he's not alone. There are a lot of people in the hip-hop community who agree with him. But then, Young Thug chimed in. And when things get even weirder is when Young Thug posted on social media about this whole debate. Now, for those who don't know, Young Thug is currently dealing with his own legal situation. He was indicted in the YSL RICO case. He's been fighting charges for years. And he's someone who understands the prison system from the inside. So when he saw Boosie going at Kodak for going to PC, he had something to say. Young Thug tweeted, PC is smarter though. That hard shit get you nothing but heartaches from your family and kids and more charges if it's too much going on in them dorms. Read that again. Young Thug is saying that staying in general population and trying to prove how tough you are can actually make your situation worse. You can catch more charges. You can get hurt. You can extend your sentence. And your family suffers because of it. So, if going to PC means you stay safe, avoid drama, and get back to your family sooner, isn't that the smarter move? That's what Thug is arguing. And honestly, that's a perspective that a lot of people haven't considered. Because for so long, hip-hop has glorified being tough in prison, going to the yard, fighting, holding your own, proving you're not soft. But Young Thug is asking a different question. What's the end game? If you're in prison trying to prove how gangster you are, and you end up catching assault charges, getting more time added to your sentence, or getting seriously injured, was it worth it? Or would it have been smarter to protect yourself, stay out of trouble, and get back to your life? And when you frame it that way, it's hard to argue against it. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to come home. The goal is to get back to your family. The goal is to rebuild your career. Not to prove to other inmates that you're tough. But here's the problem. Hip-hop culture doesn't always operate on logic. It operates on perception. And the perception is that if you go to PC, you're soft, you're scared, you can't handle the pressure. And once that label sticks, it's hard to shake it. That's the reality Kodak is dealing with right now. Even if going to PC was the smart thing to do, Boosie and others are using it as a weapon against him. And now, Meek Mill jumped in too. And here's where things get important, because Meek Mill's response was completely different from everyone else's. Meek Mill posted on social media and said, "I'm skinny. I walked every yard in jail I was in and held weight in every jail I was in, but jail is embarrassing, so I never speak on it." He went on to say that he came home, changed laws, helped free real people, and supplied jails with resources. And then he said, "I must be on a different list now." So what is Meek saying here? He's saying yes, he did his time in general population. Yes, he held his own. But he's also saying that bragging about jail is stupid. Jail is embarrassing. It's not something to be proud of. And since coming home, Meek has focused on prison reform. He's worked to change the criminal justice system. He's helped get people out of prison. He's donated resources to inmates. So in Meek's mind, that's more important than arguing about who went to PC and who didn't. But here's the interesting part. Boosie had Meek on his original list of rappers who didn't go to PC. So Meek is on the approved list, according to Boosie. But Meek is saying the whole conversation is pointless. He's saying that real growth is moving past these street codes and doing something meaningful. And I think that's a powerful message. Because Meek is basically saying that the streets and prison culture are traps. They keep you stuck in a mindset that doesn't lead anywhere productive. And instead of arguing about who is tougher in prison, we should be talking about how to keep people out of prison in the first place. But again, that's logic. And hip-hop doesn't always run on logic. It runs on ego. It runs on pride. It runs on reputation. And right now, Boosie's entire argument is built on reputation. He's saying that if you claim to be from the streets, you have to follow street rules. And one of those rules is that you don't go to PC. Period. No exceptions, no excuses. But here's the question that nobody is asking. Who made these rules? And now, where things really start to unravel is when you dig into the history of these so-called street codes. Because when you break it all down, a lot of these rules don't even make sense. They're arbitrary, they're inconsistent, and they're often used as weapons against people, not as actual moral guidelines. Let me explain. In the free world, if you're a rapper and you have security, nobody blinks. If you have bodyguards, that's just smart. If you don't go to certain neighborhoods without protection, that's just being safe. But the moment you go to prison, suddenly those same safety measures are seen as weakness. Why? What's the difference? The difference is perception. In the free world, having security is a sign of success. It means you're important enough that people want to protect you. But in prison, asking for protection is seen as a sign of fear. It means you can't handle yourself. But isn't that a double standard? And here's another thing. Boosie says Kodak has no credibility because he went to PC. But Boosie worked with Kodak after Kodak got out of prison. They did Rocket Man remix together in 2023. So if Boosie knew Kodak went to PC, why did he still work with him? Why did he still do music with him? Why did he still show him love? And now, after they've had a falling out, suddenly it's a problem? That's what a lot of people are pointing out. It seems like Boosie is using the PC thing as ammunition now that they're beefing. But before they were beefing, it wasn't an issue. And that's where the hypocrisy comes in. Because if going to PC really disqualifies someone from being respected in hip-hop, then Boosie should have never worked with Kodak in the first place. But he did. So, either Boosie didn't know about the PC situation back then, which is possible, or he knew and didn't care until they fell out. And if it's the latter, then this whole argument isn't really about street codes. It's about personal beef. It's about using someone's past against them to win an argument. And that's what makes this whole situation so messy. Because now you have all these different perspectives colliding. You have Turk saying PC is sometimes necessary for celebrities. You have Young Thug saying PC is the smarter choice. You have Meek Mill saying the whole conversation is embarrassing. And you have Boosie saying if you go to PC, you're not valid. So who's right? And really, overall, the answer depends on what lens you're looking through. If you're looking through the lens of traditional street culture, Boosie has a point. In street culture, there are codes. You don't snitch. You handle your own problems. You don't ask for protection. You stand on your own 2 feet. And if you violate those codes, you lose your credibility. That's the way it's always been. But if you're looking through the lens of logic and self-preservation, Turk and Young Thug have a point. Why would you risk your safety, your freedom, and your future just to prove something to people who don't care about you? If going to PC means you avoid violence, stay out of trouble, and get back to your family sooner, why wouldn't you do that? And if you're looking through the lens of growth and maturity, Meek Mill has a point. Why are we even glorifying prison in the first place? Why are we arguing about who is tougher behind bars instead of talking about how to keep people out of those situations? And that's the real conversation that needs to happen. Because hip-hop has been stuck in this cycle for decades. We glorify the streets. We glorify violence. We glorify going to prison and proving how tough you are. But where does that lead? It leads to more incarceration. It leads to more trauma. It leads to more death. And it keeps an entire generation of young black men stuck in a system that was designed to destroy them. So when Meek Mill says jail is embarrassing and we should be focused on reform, he's speaking from experience. He's saying we need to evolve past this mentality. But the problem is, hip-hop culture is resistant to change. Because so much of hip-hop's identity is built on these street narratives. If you take away the gangster image, what's left? If you take away the toughness, the violence, the realness, does the music still resonate? And that's a scary question for a lot of artists, because their entire brand is built on being perceived as tough, as real, as someone who's lived that life. And if that perception gets challenged, their career can be over. That's what Boosie is trying to do to Kodak right now. He's trying to destroy Kodak's credibility by exposing something from his past. And whether it's true or not, the damage is being done, because once the seed of doubt is planted, it's hard to get rid of it. People start questioning everything. They start wondering if Kodak is really who he says he is. And in hip-hop, perception is everything. And now, where things get really interesting is when you look at the history of this protective custody debate in hip-hop. Because Kodak isn't the first rapper to be accused of going to PC, and he won't be the last. Over the years, there have been multiple artists who faced similar accusations, and some of them had their careers destroyed because of it. Others were able to move past it. But the question is always the same. Does going to PC disqualify you from being considered real in hip-hop? And the answer has never been consistent. It depends on who you are. It depends on who's making the accusation. It depends on how you respond. And it depends on how much power you have in the culture. If you're an established legend, you can weather the storm. If you're a newer artist, still building your reputation, an accusation like that can end your career. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Because it's not really about the truth. It's about the narrative. And right now, Boosie is controlling the narrative. He's painting Kodak as someone who talks tough but couldn't back it up when it mattered. And whether that's fair or not, it's sticking. People are starting to question Kodak. They're starting to wonder if he's really about what he raps about. And once that doubt creeps in, it's hard to shake. But here's the thing. Kodak has a massive fan base. He has hit records. He has a career that's bigger than just street credibility. So even if Boosie is trying to tear him down, it might not work. Because Kodak's audience doesn't necessarily care about these old street codes. They care about the music. They care about the energy. They care about the lifestyle he represents. And as long as Kodak keeps making music that resonates, he'll be fine. But this situation does raise a bigger question. Are these street codes still relevant in 2026? And when things get even weirder is when you realize that the people defending these street codes are often the same people who've broken them. Let me explain. Boosie is going at Kodak for allegedly going to PC. But Boosie himself has been accused of plenty of things over the years. He's been in legal trouble. He's had public controversies. He's had beefs with other artists. So is he the moral authority on who's real and who's not? That's debatable. And that's the problem with these street codes. They're enforced selectively. They're used as weapons when it's convenient. And they're ignored when it doesn't serve the narrative. So when Turk says that Boosie is moving the goalposts, he has a point. Because the rules seem to change depending on who's being judged. If you're cool with Boosie, you're good. If you're not, suddenly everything you've ever done is under a microscope. And that's not a fair standard. But fairness isn't the goal here. The goal is to win the beef. The goal is to discredit your opponent. The goal is to control the conversation. And Boosie is very good at that. He knows how to get under people's skin. He knows how to make accusations that stick. And he knows how to turn public opinion against someone. That's what he's doing to Kodak right now. He's making Kodak defend himself against something that happened years ago. He's forcing Kodak to explain his decisions. And in doing so, he's shifting the narrative away from his own issues and onto Kodak. That's strategic. That's calculated. And it's working. Because right now, everyone is talking about whether Kodak went to PC or not. Nobody is talking about Boosie's controversies. Nobody is talking about his legal issues. Nobody is talking about his beefs with other artists. It's all about Kodak, and that's exactly what Boosie wants. And now where things really start to make sense is when you understand that this isn't just about Kodak and Boosie. This is about a larger conversation that hip-hop has been avoiding for years. What does it mean to be real in 2026? Because the definition of realness has changed. In the 90s and early 2000s, being real meant you came from the streets. You lived that life. You went to prison. You survived. And you rapped about it. But in 2026, a lot of the biggest rappers never lived that life. They grew up middle class, they went to college, they never sold drugs, they never went to prison, and yet they're some of the most successful artists in the game. So what does that say about the importance of street credibility? It says that the culture is evolving. It says that authenticity can come in different forms. It says that you don't have to have a criminal record to make great hip-hop. But there's a segment of the culture that's resistant to that change. They want hip-hop to stay rooted in street culture. They want the violence, the danger, the edge. They want rappers who've really lived what they rap about. And that's where the tension comes from. Because you have one side saying street codes matter, and you have the other side saying we need to move past that. And both sides have valid arguments. But at the end of the day, the culture is moving forward whether people like it or not. And these debates about who went to PC and who didn't are starting to feel outdated. Because younger fans don't care as much about those things. They care about the music. They care about the vibes. They care about the lifestyle. And they're not as invested in these old street rules. So, while Boosie might win this battle in the court of public opinion among older fans, he might be losing the younger generation. Because they see this as old head drama. They see this as rappers arguing about things that happened years ago. And they're not interested. They want new music. They want new energy. They want the culture to move forward, not backward. And really, overall, that's the most important takeaway from this entire situation. Hip-hop is at a crossroads. You can either stay stuck in these outdated street codes that lead to more violence, more incarceration, and more trauma. Or it can evolve. It can embrace new definitions of authenticity. It can prioritize growth, healing, and progress. And the choice is up to the artists and the fans. But right now, in March 2026, we're seeing that tension play out in real time. You have Boosie representing the old guard, the people who believe street codes are sacred, and you have people like Young Thug, Meek Mill, and Turk representing a new perspective. One that says survival and self-preservation are more important than proving your toughness. And honestly, I think both perspectives have value, because the streets are real. The dangers are real. The codes exist for a reason. But so is the need for growth. The need to protect yourself. The need to think about your family and your future. And maybe, just maybe, the answer isn't picking one side or the other. Maybe the answer is understanding that different situations require different responses. If you're in prison and your life is in danger, going to PC might be the right move. If you're capable of handling general populations safely, then do that. But, either way, it should be a personal choice. Not something that gets used against you years later in a rap beef. Because at the end of the day, everyone's situation is different. Everyone's circumstances are unique. And judging someone for how they navigated a situation you weren't in isn't fair. That's what Turk was trying to say. That's what Young Thug was trying to say. And that's what Meek Mill was trying to say. But Boosie isn't trying to hear it. And that's his right. He's entitled to his opinion. But so is everyone else. So what does all of this mean for the future of hip-hop? What we are going to see is a continued divide between the old guard and the new generation. The old guard wants to preserve these street codes. They want hip-hop to stay rooted in the authenticity of lived experience. They want rappers who've been through real struggles to be the ones who are celebrated. And there's nothing wrong with that perspective. Because hip-hop was born out of struggle, it was born out of poverty, oppression, and survival. And those elements should always be respected. But the new generation is asking a different question. They're asking why we keep glorifying the same cycles of violence and incarceration that destroy communities. They're asking why we can't evolve past these outdated codes. And they're asking why we can't celebrate growth and progress the same way we celebrate toughness. And that's a conversation the culture needs to have. Because right now, we're stuck in a loop. We celebrate rappers going to prison. We celebrate rappers surviving dangerous situations. We celebrate rappers who've lived that street life. But then, when those same rappers try to move past it, we pull them back in. We question their authenticity. We accuse them of going soft. We hold them to a standard that doesn't allow for growth. And that's toxic. Because it means that once you're labeled as a street artist, you can never escape that label. You're trapped in that narrative forever. And if you try to evolve, you're seen as a sellout or a fraud. That's not fair. People should be allowed to grow. People should be allowed to change. People should be allowed to make decisions that prioritize their safety and their future. And if hip-hop doesn't make space for that, it's going to keep losing talented artists to violence, incarceration, and early death. That's the harsh reality. And that's what Meek Mill was getting at when he said jail is embarrassing. He's saying we need to stop glorifying these destructive cycles. We need to start celebrating artists who make it out and do something positive. Artists who use their platform to create change. Artists who inspire the next generation to aim higher. That's the future of hip-hop. But we're not there yet. Because right now, we're still having debates about who went to PC in prison. We're still arguing about who's more gangster. We're still stuck in 1995. And until the culture collectively decides to move forward, we're going to keep having these same conversations. Boosie versus Kodak is just the latest example, but it won't be the last. Because as long as street credibility is used as a weapon, there will always be someone ready to attack. And the cycle will continue. And now, with all that said, here's what I think is going to happen next. Kodak is going to keep making music. He's going to keep living his life. And he's going to ignore Boosie's accusations as much as possible. Because engaging too much only gives Boosie more ammunition. Boosie, on the other hand, is going to keep pushing this narrative. He's going to keep bringing it up. He's going to keep trying to discredit Kodak. Because, in his mind, he's defending the culture. He's defending the codes that he believes in. And he's not going to back down. But ultimately, I think this beef is going to fade. Because the fans are going to move on to the next thing. There's always new drama in hip-hop. There's always a new beef. There's always a new controversy. And this one, like all the others, will eventually be replaced. But the conversation it started won't go away. Because this debate about street codes, authenticity, and what it means to be real is something hip-hop needs to have. It's a conversation that's been bubbling under the surface for years. And now it's finally out in the open. And that's a good thing. Because even if people disagree, at least they're talking about it. At least they're examining these issues. At least they're questioning whether these old rules still make sense. And maybe, just maybe, that will lead to some progress. Maybe it will lead to a culture that's more understanding, more forgiving, more focused on growth than on tearing people down. That's the hope, anyway. But only time will tell. Because hip-hop is unpredictable. And the streets, well, the streets don't always make sense. But they never did. And so now, with all that said, let me know what you think about this entire situation. Do you agree with Boosie that going to PC disqualifies someone from being respected in hip-hop? Or do you agree with Turk and Young Thug that protecting yourself is the smarter move? Do you think Meek Mill is right that we should stop glorifying prison altogether? Let me know your thoughts on whether these street codes are still relevant in 2026. What does this mean for Kodak Black's career moving forward? Do you think this beef is going to have long-term consequences, or will people forget about it in a few months? Where do you see hip-hop culture going from here? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I want to hear from you. If you made it to this point in the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton and allows me to keep bringing you this type of content. I can't thank you enough for watching. Your support means everything. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. But in the meantime, if you want to see how Boosie's past beefs have played out and whether this follows the same pattern, well, you're not going to want to miss this one. So check out the suggested video where we break down Boosie's history of calling out other rappers and whether it's helped or hurt his legacy. Because trust me, this isn't the first time Boosie has been in a situation like this, and it definitely won't be the last. Stay tuned.